Alrighty. Thank you, folks, for being here, for carving this time out tonight to join me and my guests, Jim and Julie. So Jim looks like she's Julianne, but it's Jim. I'm so excited to have everybody here. I want to just kind of share just a snippet. So Jim and I met on our morning sunrise walks, and he does it on a regular basis. I go on Saturdays. And so we met, and then I think Jim, you kind of told me about your daughter's podcast. So then that was kind of how I became aware of Julie. And then what really sparked me was that you guys did an interview. And so that was it was an interview about Julie's gratitude process. I think it was particular, but is it both of you that do the practice, or is it just, we'll get into it?
Yeah, it's really just Julie started it, and it just happened that her 1000th day of continuous gratitude journaling happened to be on a day that she was up visiting me in New Hampshire. So the universe sometimes brings events together, and that was one of them. And we did a live podcast that
I caught.
Saw.
And right. And I said, oh, this is perfect. So anyways, I'm going to just do a quick introduction about me for the people who don't know who I am. I am a certified life coach as well as a master's level clinician, and I support others in living a life in harmony with their values, with their vision, their goals, and really helping people live a life with greater gratitude and greater joy. I do one-on-one coaching, workshops, courses, all kinds of fun stuff like that. I can be found at Lisa Berman Life Coach on Facebook, and Instagram is Saturday_sunrise if you're interested. Julie is a physical therapist, where you are a performance physical therapist, and you live down in Maryland, and you are the host of the podcast Goal Set Mindset. So, oh wait, I see I'm distracted. But anyways, Julie, you want to take half a minute to just kind of introduce yourself, just so that I don't butcher it if I get distracted?
Yeah, of course. No, that was great. Nice to meet you all. Yeah, my name is Julie. I am a physical therapist, like Lisa said. I live right outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I'm 25 years old, and I started my gratitude practice, been over 1,000 days now. I think today was 1,032, which I feel like now that I've hit 1,000, that was like a big number. And now it's like, oh, it's just something that I do. But yeah, I am really big on mindset practices, practicing gratitude and meditation. And as a physical therapist, I'm noticing how important it is that each person I interact with has a positive mindset when they're dealing with something hard that brings them into PT. And it's been really inspiring to me to help guide others on that, and just practice it myself as I go through life and figure out adulthood, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Julie. And Jim, I know I always enjoy our conversations on those days that we bump into each other at the beach, because certainly the positive mindset and the gratitude is definitely kind of part of who you are. And I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, Jim, in terms of kind of introducing yourself besides being Julie's dad.
Yeah, that is one of my greatest claims to fame. Julie and her brothers, make me look really good, and I appreciate that. Now, I arrived here in New Hampshire about 2.5 years ago, and it was a journey, a lifelong journey that I never thought would happen. And suddenly, through some good practices of positive thinking, manifesting, and just really focusing on developing a life that I really wanted, I ended up here. And as Lisa said, we literally met one morning on a Saturday, and we happened to be in the same spot of the beach, taking the same picture of the sun. And I I talk to people. It's kind of what I do. And
You
Lisa and I
do. Yeah.
we started a conversation, and that turned into, a friendship. And,
Yeah.
kindred souls find each other. The energy of your soul will draw the people into you that need to be in your life. And Lisa's just one of those great morning people that finds the energy of the sun like I do. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And what's so fun is it's such a neat group of people at sunrise, whether it's a 5 a.m. sunrise or a 7:15 sunrise. I think it's a lot of like-minded folks and just kind of a really fun community. Most of them walk the beach every day or a lot. I'm the one that comes once a week, pop in. So it's a very fun community. Um, so what really struck me in the conversation was so Jim interviewed Julie, I think was how your podcast went. And so it was really kind of a fun thing because um, you guys had a conversation about your kind of process, Julie, to kind of coming to having a gratitude practice. And I think that I am always struck by the stories that lead people to having a gratitude practice, because pretty typically there's something that's kind of a challenge that leads one to kind of diving in. I'm wondering, Julie, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing your story, sharing the story of kind of how that came to be. And maybe Jim, you can kind of pop in too, because it really is it's a story about both of you, really. So I think together as you kind of you can start it, Julie, because it's your story kind of, but Jim, you can certainly kind of pipe in as well, just to kind of share that piece. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Julie.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. I love talking about the start of my gratitude practice because it really is a testament to that strength is built through struggle and resilience happens from resistance when we face resistance. But before I get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to New Hampshire sunrises. I have a few in my apartment, one of which is right
Yeah.
back here in my background here. And when my dad moved to New Hampshire and he started going to the sunrise in the freezing cold of November and December in New Hampshire, I thought he was crazy. And then I felt like every week I was hearing about a new person that he met that was really nice and also walks. And then I learned there's a whole crew of you guys that are crazy enough to walk at 4:30 in the morning and do that. And when I go, I do it as well. And it's awesome. But so my gratitude story. So back in 2020, in the midst of all the craziness that was 2020, I was finishing my first year of physical therapy school. And during that time, my dad was also facing some health challenges. He had recently fought through a prostate cancer surgery, and then following that was having some heart problems. And being a healthcare provider, I had kind of sensed that something was going on and encouraged him to go to the doctor. And like many strong men do, they say, I'm all right, don't worry, I'm good. And then eventually, dad gets his stress test. They find that there is a blockage. And I have quite a bit of anxiety around that. And then fast forward to the shutdowns, suddenly my dad's quite frankly dangerous situation became elective. And it was this time period where I was worried every day about my dad and about him getting the care that he needed. And in May of 2020, dad ended up landing in the hospital from some complications from his prostate surgery. And he called me, and I was in my apartment in Scranton, and he said, I need you to come down and pick up medicine for me because I need to take this medicine and I don't want to disturb you. So I want you to just drive down 2 hours to where I live, get the medicine and go back. And I'm like, first of all, dad, I'm going to stay with you. But this ended up turning into a few weeks of me staying with dad and helping him, but being really anxious about all that was going on. And at this time, I had started to dive into personal development. I was a ripe, 22 years old, 23 years old. And I became so fascinated as a physical therapy student and coach at how we can train the mind very similar to how we can train the body. How just like we work out to get our muscles stronger, we can make our mind stronger. And I had read about gratitude, and I said, you know what? I got nothing else going on in my life right now besides hanging out with dad. This would be a cool time to try this gratitude thing. So in May of 2020, one of the only things I did for fun was go to Target, because where else do you go when you can't go anywhere else? And I went to Target, and I went to the dollar section, and I found this cute little notebook, and I bought it, and I'm like, this is going to be my gratitude notebook. I'm going to write down 5 things I'm grateful for from the previous day, and I'm going to do it for 30 days. And that was my goal, was 30 days unbroken. And I decided that I would share it on my Instagram story for some accountability. Fast forward, this notebook filled up, and this notebook filled up, and I'm now on this notebook. And today was day 1031 of my gratitude practice. And like I said, really the catalyst of it was more so from a curiosity standpoint of like, all right, people talk about these really cool things that happen from gratitude. Like, let me see if it's legit. And each day that I practiced, I began to see the power in looking up and just noticing all of the beauty that exists around us. I think the shutdown did a really good job at stopping us in our tracks and forcing us to look inward and outward. And yeah, and since then I've never looked back, and I couldn't imagine life without this practice.
I love this, Julie, that you approached it from a place of curiosity. So, right, you're the youngest guest I've had. And so I think so many others have kind of had the ups and downs, and so that they kind of have been in and out of gratitude, but kind of being at a ripe young age to kind of go into it with like, curiosity. I love that, because that's such a wonderful invitation to kind of play with it and see what it's like and see what it does. So that I've never had somebody go into it from a place of curiosity. That is just such a
Yeah.
neat.
And I honestly, I attribute that to just being like a nerd about the human body and human performance. I love all things training, like I said, whether it's physical or mental. So when I heard about how they see brain changes in studies where they look at people's brains who practice gratitude, just like a muscle gets bigger and stronger from doing bicep curls, your brain happiness centers get bigger and stronger from practicing gratitude every day. And I just thought that was literally the coolest thing ever. So that's really what drew me in, was the science behind it. And I had no idea the mindset impact that it would have on me. But it's just so cool how this mental and physical self that makes a human being is so intertwined.
So intertwined. Jim, what was your reaction to her curiosity?
Well, as with all things that Julie has done in her life, I'm her biggest supporter. Definitely president of the fan club. And when she told me she was going to do this, and what she, left out is she went to Target in between her DoorDash and Uber Eats
Oh
runs.
yeah, DoorDash was my side hustle at that time. Yeah.
I would be doing some work, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to go make some money now. It's like getting near lunchtime. Let me go, do a couple of deliveries." And then she came back with the journal, and she told me what she was going to do. And I said, that is a fantastic thing. And we talked about it, and she shared some of the entries with me during those 30 days. And it, again, you look back on things and see how everything converges at the right time and the right place. And I was fortunate because the heart blockage that Julie alluded to was an 85% blockage of the LAD artery, which is the widowmaker. And it was diagnosed in February, but my cardiology team in Maryland, they shut down because of the pandemic. And they said that if I came in through the emergency room in cardiac arrest, they could help me. But short of that, hang in there, buddy, and hope you make it. Well, I ended up in Pennsylvania for a job change. And when I did end up in the emergency room through complications of another issue I had going, the medical team looked at me and said, "Why have you not taken care of this?" And I simply looked and said, it wasn't an option. They wouldn't do it. And the doctor said something to me that I'll never forget. He looked down at me and said, well, you're in the right place, because in here, our administrators raise money and have fundraisers, and they're really good at it. Isn't this a beautiful hospital? But here, the doctors make medical decisions, and we're going to fix you. And 30 days later, essentially, I went in for the angioplasty. They put a stent in. I could barely walk 200 yards without having to stop with an angina episode. And that day after, Julie and I went out for a 3-mile walk.
Wow.
And I can't even begin to tell you the gratitude at that moment. Shout out Dr. Manglaberty, saved my life. But through all that, I had my own gratitude practice that was not as formalized as Julie's, but I would stop myself at different times of each day and just remind myself how lucky I am to be where I am, to have the relationships that I have, to be meeting the people I met. I moved around a lot for a number of years, and always had to start fresh and create a new community. And was just always grateful that I just always seemed to find the right people in the right places, and everything would fall in place. And it was never escaped me just how special that was, but also how intentional it was.
Yeah.
So a little bit different, angle at it from Julie.
Right.
But I certainly, when she told me what she was doing and why she was doing it, I could not have been more excited for her, because I knew this was going to morph into something huge for her, and it has.
It has. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it
I want to
changed oh, go ahead, Julie. Yeah.
No, Lisa, I just want to add in, because the best part, and I don't know if we're going to get into this, but like about gratitude journaling is having this physical thing that you get to look at, like doing it 1,000 days now. I have over 5,000 little happy moments that I can read through if I want. And I just looked back to see that timeline of like what I was kind of journaling on when this all started. And I started on May 25th of 2020. This is June 17th of 2020. I put dad finally getting his cardiac stent. And the next day, my number one thing on the list on June 18th of 2020 was dad's successful walk with no chest pain.
Yeah.
And it's so special to me, much more special to me now looking back on it, even than it was in the moment. But it's such a cool reminder to remind yourself of like things that you've gotten through and how many special things there were to celebrate, even in the midst of like, oh, you just had a procedure done. That could have been this like negative, scary thing, but we were able to turn it into like, you just walked 3 miles. Like,
Right.
that's awesome. Let's go, so it's powerful stuff.
Yep.
I have a question for you, but I want to, so my question for you, Julie, but I want to go back to Jim, is kind of, oh, now I lost it. Wait a minute. Lessons learned, or kind of things learned. So you can think on that for a second. Wait a minute. Jim, so my question for you is, so kind of with Julie implementing her gratitude practice while she's living with you and kind of helping you out, did that shift your gratitude practice at all, or did it impact? I guess I'm just kind of curious if it impacted it, and if so, how?
My recollection of that time, it didn't, because I really was just concerned about staying alive. And
Yeah.
the angina episodes that I would have would literally stop me in my tracks, and I'd either have to stand against a wall or sit down, close my eyes, and just literally relax as much as I could until it passed.
Yeah.
So, and I would wake up in the middle of the night. It would happen when I was washing dishes. It would happen when I was sitting and watching TV with Julie. So I was pretty much in the moment and kind of trying really hard not to be in crisis mode with my
Yeah.
daughter there, and
Right.
just truly trusting that this was going to work. And ironically, the day I had the procedure was my grandmother's birthday.
Hmm.
So, I was grateful that her spirit was there with me. And
Yeah.
my father had the same blockage, but unfortunately he had a massive heart attack at pretty much the same age. He survived it, but was compromised for the next 13 years of his life. So there was so many emotional things going on at that moment that I was really kind of in survival mode. And having Julie there was so important for my own sanity, but also just as a reminder I have more to live for than just me.
Having
And it
her there
was
was a real godsend for you. Really.
absolutely. And the fact that she was only 2 hours away in grad school that had shut down, she was remote learning, she could come in and work anywhere.
Right.
And she came to live with me. And it was a magical month for a lot of reasons, mostly because the outcome was good. Let's be honest, you know. But it it really kind of just catapulted in me an appreciation for how fragile it is, and things can happen quickly.
Right.
Um, I dodged two significant bullets, and it does not escape me. And every morning, as I see that sun come up, it's just a renewal that, just like a flower that closes at night and then opens when the sun hits it, that sun hits me, my heart opens, and it's a good day. I'm going to just mention Jackie for a moment. One of the things that Jackie and I share is a love of heart imagery, for obvious reasons. After I told that story, I I come across heart shapes on the beach randomly, and Jackie is a kindergarten teacher out in California. And when I find something that's particularly nice and easy to recognize, I will send it to her, and she shares it with her students on her smartboard. So when they come into the classroom in the morning, they get a little bit of what I call beach love. And it's such a cool connection that Jackie and I have, in that
Yeah.
I see these heart images, I share them with her, and then she shares them with her children.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice, evolution. And in the last 2 days, my heart has been really open with love, and I have found 8 different images in the last 2 days. The universe is sending me lots of affirmation, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
There, it is so fun in the bubbles and the clouds, in the water, in the sand,
And the shells and the seagulls, and yes, we
and the rocks and the yes.
yeah. Can you tell that
Yes.
Lisa and I have a problem, right? It's a healthy addiction.
Yes. So I want
And
to, Julie,
well,
what?
I just wanted to, if I may, on
Yeah,
Jim,
Jackie.
so sending the hearts to me, I'm 3 hours earlier and Jim is up, at the crack of dawn walking. I'm up at the crack of dawn to make my commute to Malibu for teaching. So often that will be the first image I'll see in the morning. And I really look forward to seeing the hearts, and it just sets a beautiful tone for the day. And as he said, for my students, they come in and, I explain where Jim lives and they're Malibu kids and they relate to the beach. So it's just wonderful all around.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yes. A good way to start the day. So, Julie, what about kind of, because I feel like you guys talked a little bit about kind of lessons learned, or maybe it was an increased awareness kind of through the process of journaling your gratitude. What were some of your big takeaways from that, kind of as you looked back over a thousand days?
Yeah, yeah. There's so many lessons to be learned. I think the biggest thing that gratitude has helped me with is to live in the present moment. It's so easy to spend a lot of time thinking about the past and thinking about the future. And whether it's good thoughts or bad thoughts, like, it's important, of course, to reflect on the past. And I think also really important and exciting to dream about the future, especially being young. Like, I have so many things that I want to accomplish that aren't quite here yet. But what I've realized and what I've learned is there's no point really in dreaming of the future if you're not enjoying the fruits of your labor now and just appreciating what's around you now. And it's especially through this gratitude practice when I look back and I read things like that walk with dad after his heart procedure. That's not something that I think about every day. But when I read that, I can place myself back in that moment and remember how good that moment was and how happy and exciting and, quite frankly, relieving it was. And the ability to experience those in the moments that they're happening, but then also reflect back on them, I think is super powerful. And that's one reason why my gratitude practice specifically, the only really rule I have for it, I guess, is that it's 5 items of gratitude that are from the previous 24 hours of my life. So I like to practice gratitude in the morning for the same reason that many of you guys might like to go see the sunrise. Like, it's just a great way to start your day. And when I practice in the morning, I reflect back on the previous day. And that tip was given to me by a book that I read by Rachel Hollis, an author. And the whole idea behind it is when we practice gratitude, the more specific you can get, the more you're going to feel that, the better that's going to be. When we think of gratitude, a lot of us just think like, I'm grateful for the food in my fridge and the roof over my head and my family. And those are obviously great things to feel grateful for, but really like zone in, like get vulnerable, get intimate on what it is you're grateful for. And I guess another lesson, Lisa, that stands out, and especially in this conversation, is the value of sharing gratitude. Like it's one thing to feel gratitude and for you to be on your morning walk or saying your prayers or, like journaling and feeling that, but the ability to share that, whether it be to make a post on social media or text my dad and say like, hey dad, I really enjoyed my visit with you this weekend. Like verbalizing the gratitude is where the magic happens. That's where that ripple effect happens. And I think right now, so many of us are like emotionally guarded, where like vulnerability is this like scary thing. And maybe it's always been that way. I haven't been around that long. But the depth of my friendships and relationships and the love that I share with people in my life now is so much deeper because of that gratitude. And I think, Dad, for you, like that's kind of Facebook for you is that same thing. Like you make your posts, you send them to, Jackie over in California, and you write out your thoughts of what you're feeling that day. And some people message you and say that they love it. Like our friend Pat, every morning, like comments, but other people might just be reading that and you don't know who it's impacting, but that little bit of positivity trains our brain to seek more of that and find more of that. And I can go on and on about what gratitude has done for me, Lisa, but those are the big things that come to mind.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Ooh.
It happened to me too, Lisa, so it's the whole town.
It's the whole town. So there's a few of us here who what about Jim for you? Have you kind of, because your gratitude practices is different, but you still clearly practice gratitude. Yes. Has that changed for you over the course of your life, or even for you, was there a time where that wasn't part of your life and then it became part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. The last 10 years of my life have been very transformative. I moved 4 times in 5 years. Job changes, geographic changes, always having a stubborn faith that it was moving on to something better and trusting in that, even when it wasn't clear. There was a time when gratitude was not a part of my life, and it was some of my darkest days. So I kind of developed it, I don't want to say as a survival technique, but I just had a trust and a faith that there was something more out there and I had to find it. And it really is like a positive feedback cycle. Like Julie had said, that you train your brain to recognize and see these things. And, I often will say, see the beauty around you. There's beauty everywhere. There's joy everywhere. And by being open to it, you invite it in. Not to put a downer on this, I got some awful news this morning that one of my dearest best friends took his life last night. And it was such an awful shock to all of us who have known him. There's a group of us from college who, of all of us, we always thought he was the best, and he was just such a good human being, but has had a really rough 2 or 3 years, and he was not able to see the gratitude around him and the beauty and the joy. And it got to the point that he went to a very dark place that he could not see his way out of. And it was a stark reminder. I do believe that there are lessons to be learned in every tragedy. And that lesson that got brought home to me this morning when I got that phone call from his ex-wife was, you don't take this for granted. You can slip into a bad place just as easily as you can climb into a good place. And for me, it's a choice every day. I choose to climb into that good place. And some days are easier than others. And a lot of times I'll end my posts for my own good, but for others, make it a great day. Mine already is.
Yeah.
When I get off that beach and I get home to begin my day, it's hard to believe it can get any better, but it does.
Yeah.
And that energy that I get from the beach, the energy that I get from meeting our friends, Lisa, my first hour is always in the dark by myself. And then the second hour is the sun's up and I'm seeing people. Every person I see, every good morning I give, I just feel my heart getting bigger and more open. And I can't imagine not having that being part of my day or something similar to it. So there is such magic to this gratitude. There is such magic in seeing, where that beauty and where that joy lies and how you can share it, how you can just simply by smiling and saying hi and acknowledging someone, you transfer that to them. So I'm so grateful that my daughter has discovered this at the ripe young age of 25. I mean, God, the life that she can now have because this is part of who she is just amazing. I didn't discover it till I was, almost double that. Mm-hmm. And thank God I did when I did, because it truly has saved my life and given me a life that I didn't dare imagine 10 years ago. So, I'm grateful for all of this, and as I say, the people I meet, the places I am, and the things I find myself doing, it's really an amazing practice once you just take those few little steps.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I have a tickle in my throat. Oh, my tickle. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they want to share or ask? Please feel, I think, and kind of have some, a lot of times the conversation is a fun thing. Does anybody have any questions? Kim? Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, so, when I started, my gratitude, I still have difficulties getting past, like just putting my husband, my cats, air. How do you, I guess, and so I like stop because like I don't know what to do like the next day. I guess any tips about how to get like that detailed or think about the day before?
Yeah.
I think I'm a very practical person, so I think of the practical things.
Right. Yeah, no, it's such a good point. And I mean, I would be lying if I said that I don't have repeat things in my gratitude list. I guess like the big two tips, one of which is allow yourself the time to really think about it. There are some days that I sit down to do my morning gratitude and things flow quick. I typically do 5 things. Sometimes I do 6 because there's just one more that I'm like, oh, that's got to get in there too. But there are other times that I'm sitting down for like 10 minutes, really thinking about like, what else is there? And not necessarily because the day was bad, but just because it's hard to really pick those things out. I mean, some of which are like very specific things. Like I just flipped to a random page in my journal now, February 25th. One of my items on that was a friend sending me a new song to listen to. Like that was such a minor little thing of my friend being like, hey, I heard this song after church last week and it made me think of you. And like, I just remember that. I'm like, let me write that down. I think a lot of it is centered around the people that I interact with. Like my dad, I'm a people person. So more times than not, my gratitude list has something to do with somebody that I interacted with, whether it's a loved one or a complete stranger. But if you notice that you have repeat things, that's a good thing. That means you probably care a lot about them. But maybe pick a specific thing. Like you said, your cat. Like, what is it about your cat that you're really grateful for? Is it like the way that your cat purrs when it lays in your lap? Or is it the way that your cat like plays with its toy? Like those little details are so fascinating to me when we start to notice them, how much they come out. But I'm so glad to hear that you have a practice. I think it's so great that there's hopefully a good amount of us doing this on a regular basis.
I think too, Kim, part of the trick is to kind of, and I think Julie did a great job, kind of those descriptors, how it purrs, how it cuddles.
How he is crazy.
Yeah, like your cat might make my gratitude list tomorrow with the way he's playing back there.
But even
so
to kind of,
my husband blocked that off, so he's trying to get in.
oh,
So that's what's happening right now.
Yeah. but to tap into kind of how it makes you feel, so that like when you tap into the feeling of what it is about the cat or what it is about your husband, my dog.
Yeah.
He must know. He doesn't know, but yes.
Yeah.
But to really kind of tap into those feelings too, Kim, I think,
Yeah.
those descriptives, and so that it's not just kind of a to-do list. It kind of becomes internalized, and you can feel it because it is in kind of the feeling of the gratitude that that's what buoys us in those hard times. That's what lifts us, what helps us out of a dark space, out of the anxiety. It is feeling that buoyed by those pieces that you're grateful for. So.
Yeah. And I think a big thing that you just said, and it's totally what I do. Like it's technically, because how I look at things is my to-do list. I'm like, oh, I did it this morning. So I need to like stop thinking that way.
Take it off your to-do list, Kim.
I'm a to-do list and numbers girl. So
Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
find
Lisa,
a way to change that up for you.
Yeah.
Lisa, I love what you said about like tying it to an emotion too. Like one thing that I wrote in on that same page that my eyes just went to was feeling appreciated was one of my pieces of gratitude. And quite honestly, this was a month ago. I don't remember the exact thing I was writing about. I am a little bit more like particular in a way about what I write because I do post it on Instagram every day. So sometimes if it's like about something that I can't share, or it was probably something work related, to be honest. But just that feeling of feeling appreciated, like as simple as that, I can write down if that's an emotion that I felt. So it's kind of fun when you start to challenge yourself to get more detailed. And I've run into that too, where I'm like, this is feeling kind of stale. Like, how can I get more deep into this? And I think that emotion piece is key.
Yeah. Anybody have it? Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Julie, I love what you said. I am very similar. I sit in the morning before I do anything and I write about a paragraph of what I'm grateful for from the day before. But I love what you're saying about sharing it. Like I have a social media presence. I just try to keep it simple but positive. Lisa's seen some of what I've shared. But I love that. I love like I had dinner with a couple of friends last night, and I should follow up and tell them how nice it was to spend the time with them, because I think that's what we all need. We all need that positive reinforcement, and that just knowing that somebody out there cares about you and enjoys spending time with you.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a quote on my wall in my living room. It's a big like wall art piece that I found when I was in Maine. Actually, Dad, I think you gave me like $50 for my birthday on this trip I went on, and I bought it with that $50. I was like, this is perfect because it's all about gratitude. But one of the lines in it is, feeling gratitude and not sharing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. And I thought that was an interesting perspective because, of course, there's still value in like feeling grateful, but sharing it is where the magic happens. And back to my nerdy sciencey brain, the literature and research on gratitude is all centered around expressing it. So they're not studying people while they're like sitting there quietly feeling grateful. They're studying the brain and taking functional MRI scans of the brain while somebody's either speaking words of gratitude or writing it. And they'll see like in an 8-week period, when a person practices this regularly, there's literally like hypertrophy, growth of the brain cells. Stronger neural connections are built when you take the thoughts from your head and put it out physically. And it's cool. It's literally like a proven thing. And it's amazing because that's exactly it. And expressing it is hard because it's vulnerable. When I started sharing this practice, I have 2 Instagram pages. I have like my private, Instagram I've had since college with all my pictures with my friends. And then I have this other Instagram that I started when I was in college and became really interested in PT and fitness. I started sharing it on that. And at the time I had like maybe 100 followers. It was like all my close friends. And now I have 1,300 followers, many of which are patients, coworkers, other colleagues within the field of physical therapy. It's a vulnerable place sometimes to write things about my life in that gratitude list. But when I get those messages of somebody reading it and being like, oh, I had a really good walk yesterday too. Or, you know, like, oh my God, like I love getting fresh strawberries from the grocery store. Like whatever it is that I wrote, it's just such a cool way to connect over positive things. And for me, it's been so valuable to practice vulnerability because sharing my emotions isn't something that I've always enjoyed doing. My dad knows, but it's getting a little bit easier with time through practicing gratitude.
Thank you, Julie. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts?
I don't have a question. I guess it's more of a thought that I really loved, just loved your photo, Lisa, from maybe last week. And it was a heart-shaped rock that you found on the beach that you took a picture of. And when I saw that, I just went, oh, I mean, it was just, I think out went some, in came some new. It was just uplifting, refreshing. It was great, you know, and I just went, I have got to find one of those.
Oh, well, and you know, I think that we've kind of danced around the conversation about kind of what you look for. So, Ray, I know for me,
I do.
when I go to the beach and if I'm looking for a heart-shaped rock, I find one. And I can go and not be looking for one, and I find them. But it is that kind of being open and expansive to kind of what beauty will you find. And you know, I can tell you I have an abundance of heart-shaped rocks, heart-shaped seashells, heart-shaped, you know, and I don't take them all.
Right.
because-
And Patty, this, you know, what I will say is I like to look at it, I call it beach Rorschach. It's sort of like looking at an ink blot and what do you see in it? And, you know, I've been standing next to two of my friends in the morning and suddenly I'm bending over to take a picture and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, look at this. Oh yeah. You know, it happened this morning. I saw a rock that looked to me the way the angle was, it looked like Pac-Man. Well, when we turned it at 90 degrees, when we got to the other side of it, all of a sudden it was a heart shape. And it was the funniest thing because there were three of us there, and my one friend was looking at it at a different angle, and she was like, "Oh my God, look at this! You don't see this." And the two of us were like, "No, it looks like Pac-Man." Well, as soon as we got to her perspective, it became a heart. So,
Well, listen, isn't that a great,
yeah,
you know, lesson, right? You know, so much is perspective and, you know,
yes,
and when you look for the good, it's easier to find the good. If you're looking for the bad,
Yeah.
you're gonna find
Yeah.
it. So,
The eye of the beholder,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, so good. And Lisa, that reminds me of just one more thing that I want to mention because it's so on the topic of what you all just
Yeah.
said of like what you seek is seeking you. And one of the analogies that I give people more so when I'm trying to sell the idea of gratitude to them, like, hey, you should try this thing. It's so great. And they're like, oh, come on, really? Like, does it do anything? I think back to going car shopping. When you go car shopping, I know when I went car shopping like 3.5 years ago, I was looking at the Honda HR-V and the Hyundai Kona. Those were like the two cars I was between. And I had never really knew about them before. It was just like, those were in my budget. Those were the size I wanted. I saw both cars and then I go about the rest of my week. And everywhere I go, I'm seeing Honda HR-Vs everywhere. I'm like, oh, there's one. And like, oh, there's two at Target. And like, oh, there's one next to me. I'm like, where did all these Honda HR-Vs come from? Like, they didn't just sell a mass production order of them. I never noticed them because I was never looking for them. I never had a reason to. And gratitude is the same way. When your brain is turned on to look for it because you hold yourself accountable to writing 5 things every day, you're going to have those moments in your day when, you know, you're online at the coffee shop and the person in front of you like chats with you a little bit. Like, oh, that was cool. That was really nice that they like said hi to me. Boom, put it in the gratitude list. Some people I know like keep a list in their phone and just write things down as they come. that's one of my favorite things is like, of course, you're not going to notice all these things if you're not looking for them. So look for them and they will come.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to share one other thing because I feel like this is a beautiful connection between what Julie and Jim are sharing. So I'm reading the book called The Slight Edge. I've read it more than once. And there's a section in there that talks about your mindset. And if you have a positive outlook and you have belief, you're less likely to have heart attacks or strokes, or like our mind and our overall feeling of health and well-being impacts our health. So that might have been part of what you carried you through, Jim, because I think it's insane, the nurse in me, that they're telling you the widowmaker has got a significant blockage, but put that on a hold.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
oh,
No, that's a beautiful connection, Robin. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So, Julie, do you have any favorite books that kind of are your go-to recommendations? I always love to kind of hear different books.
Yeah, sure. So a big one that's had an impact on my life, it was the first ever real like personal development type of book I've read, is the one that I have behind me called Grit.
Oh, yeah.
Grit is the study or this concept of passion and perseverance for the long term. And this book is really cool because it's a little bit more from like a scientific lens. It's very research based. But they do a really good job at just painting this picture of whatever it is that you're working towards. If you are passionate about that thing and you can persevere through obstacles and just have the tenacity to keep going, you're going to be successful. And of course, there's a fine line between like talent. Like, no matter how hard I work, I'm not going to go be like an NBA basketball player. But I think there's so many things in life that we sell ourselves short and think that like, oh, I just don't have the resources, or I just don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time. And this concept of grit has been proven in many different populations to be the thing that carries us forward. So that's kind of a big one. And then the other one I'll share, Lisa, I don't know if anybody here knows the author Bob Goff. He's a Christian, but he has a book called Love Does. And it's technically under the category, I guess, of like spiritual reading, Christian reading, but in a very digestible way. There's no like scripture in it, but the book was gifted to me by a friend, and it was just all surrounded by how as human beings, we are designed to love, to experience love, to give love, to show love for others, and how that's really what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis. And of course, this isn't always romantic love, but like friendship love is like so underrated. Like just loving the people in your life well. So that book I read recently was really cool and just powerful, and showing me like that's what we're here to do is support each other.
Oh, that's beautiful. What is that called again?
Love Does.
Okay, I wrote it. I wasn't sure if I had written it down. So
Yeah, it's really good.
that sounds, yeah. What about for you, Jim? I don't know if you read at all. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, do you read, or do you have a favorite
Yes,
book? Yeah.
I do, and I'm surprised Julie didn't tell one of our favorite stories. When she started reading at about 3 or 4, and I would take her to Barnes and Noble. I told her, and she never forgot, I will never say no to buying you a book. So she has exploited that promise that I made to her on numerous occasions when we walk out of Barnes and Noble with a stack of books. So it's one of those things that my mother instilled in me, and I've instilled in Julie, that it's a wonderful gift when you give someone the gift of reading.
Yes.
The book that I'm reading right now, and it's very funny because Julie and I have not talked about the book, For Love, or Love Does. But I'm reading a book that was actually recommended to me by one of our beach walking friends. And the title of it is Aman Cara, Amancara. And that's Celtic for soul friend. And it's written by the author, John O'Donohue, who was a Catholic priest at one point, left the priesthood, and kind of went into the spirituality of the Celtic traditions and different things. He's a poet, he's a philosopher, he's got a lot of perspectives on things. And the book opens up the idea of soul friend in Celtic traditions is really that when you become friends with someone, your souls connect and they become one, and they gel together in that you have a soul friend. And it's a cool little concept. And I'm only about halfway through the book. But I would absolutely, if you guys want something that's just a little bit different, and unfortunately, John O'Donohue passed away probably about 12 or 13 years ago. And if you go on to YouTube and, YouTube his name, or even put it into a podcast search, he did a couple of interviews that people have put onto different podcasts. And it's fascinating to listen to him speak. He speaks so simply and clearly, but with such a profound message. In reading the book, it reads very easy and it makes such perfect sense as you read it. But it's very similar to what Julia said, that we're here to love. We're here to connect with people. We're here to have an open heart. And when you find people who, through tragedy and through personal crisis, have just closed down and they're shut down, they have their eyes down, they cover themselves with a hoodie, and they're just closed off to the world physically and emotionally. It's to me that's a source of great sadness, because I had been there at different times of my life, and now refuse to ever go back. It's all about being open. A mantra that I use first thing in the morning as I'm walking and reflecting is, open your heart and feel the joy. And I say that with the cadence of my walk. So again, by the time I encounter my first fellow beach walker, my heart is fully open, and I'm looking at that moment to feel the joy. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the connections we make and the connections that we hold on to. And not everybody stays, not everybody's intended to be there.
Right.
But when you do meet those kindred souls and those kindred spirits, it's magic. And I'm so grateful that I have stumbled into a community full of magical people. It's wonderful.
So how do you spell the book? AMAN?
AMAN, and the next word CARA. Again, with my good New England accent. I'm in Cara,
And what's the author's name again?
John O'Donohue. Nice Irish boy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you Google his name or look, I got the books right off from Amazon, order them one day, get them the next, immediate gratification. But his books are still in print. He has another one that he wrote that's, next up in the queue. And it's called Beauty. And it's a book of poetry that he wrote about noticing the beauty in the world. And it just, when you looked up the first one, they kind of paired it, and it was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, what I like about it is so easy to read. Another author I read recently, Michael Singer. Some of you may have heard of him, The Untethered Soul or The Untethered Life.
Yeah.
But incredibly, brilliant man. But some of his reading can be very difficult to work through. So that one, I'll read 10 pages and I'm ready to take a nap. John O'Donohue, I read 30 pages and I want 30 pages more. So again, different styles, both incredibly positive, uplifting messages and enlightening messages, but just different styles. So
styles. Thank you. Thank you. We are approaching an hour, so I want to give if anybody has a question or a thought or anything, I want to be able to give people the opportunity to kind of last minute. So
Lisa, I'm just throwing the name. If any of you guys are on like social media or like Instagram is like where I'm at the most. I love connecting with people who enjoy having conversations like this, and I'm looking for more of them. So feel free to like check out my podcast or follow me on Instagram. And this was so fun, Lisa. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, it has been wonderful to have you guys. It was like I watched the interview and I said, this is good. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you everybody for being here. I look forward. I don't have my next one lined up. I'm in the process of a communication with a few people, so it's always the coordination of things. So thank you guys for being here, and have a lovely evening. So thank you guys.
Thank you. You too.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jim.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
So good to see you, Jackie.